Welcome back, guys, to another video brought to you by your one and only literary pharaoh. After doing a little bit more research and looking around, and research nowadays has to be looking on YouTube or looking on the internet, because we can't trust mainstream media anymore. We can't trust quote-unquote official police reports. And I was listening to Coach Malachi's channel, his YouTube channel, and the great thing about Coach Malachi is that he was one of the people who were in the vehicle when Bud Crawford was pulled over by the police officers. And it was 4 people in the vehicle. You had Bud Crawford, who was, I think, driving. He had his bodyguard to his passengers on the passenger side of his vehicle, and then behind Bud was a young lady, and then on the juxtaposed behind the passenger, diagonal from Bud Crawford, you had Coach Malachi. So Coach Malachi was in the vehicle, and I didn't know this. Initially I just thought that they were stopped by police and probably harassed. I didn't know that they had guns pulled out on them. Not only were guns pulled out on them, the guns were pointed to their heads. And this is according to what Coach Malachi said. And I'm going to believe what the hell he says, because he's the one that's in there. He's the one that's actually there. He made a lot of interesting points on his channel. He was limited into what he can say, because the event right now is recently still under investigation. So there's a lot of things that he can't say. He can't go into the details. But he did talk about his personal experience. He said on his channel that he does not have a representative, but he's doing this for the people who don't have a voice in Omaha, Nebraska. That this harassment of civilians who happen to be of brown skin or melanin content or caramel content. I hate to use the word black, because this black denotes so much negative meanings. The stigma with the term black, even when you talk about diseases, you talk about black plague, a black death. Black, like when you think of black, it's nothing is good is associated with black. Black equates to death. So I don't even like to call a specific race black, nor do I like to call a specific race white either. So with that being said, you're gonna hear me use melanated. You're gonna hear me use brown skin. You're gonna hear me use caramel. You're gonna hear me use any other term than the term black. But anyway, I digress. I just wanted to make a point with that. So when Coach Malachi is speaking to what happened on that day, he was very, very intentional with not talking about what Bud Crawford went through and what the others went through, because they have their own legal representation. But Coach Malachi, he himself, he doesn't have legal representation, and he just said, I'm representing myself, and I'm going to speak for myself. I'm going to leave them out of it. I'm going to talk about the things that I experienced. He had a gun pointed to his head, and he said on his channel that he was afraid for Terrance Crawford's life. He literally thought, like, this is it. And when he was saying this, you know how certain people get on YouTube and you know, most of them are filled with this, this hyperbolic theme. They tend to exaggerate stories just to, bloviate their content, to make their content a little bit more enticing and appealing. I don't think that Coach Malachi was doing that. And I can empathize with the experiences that he's had in the past and what he went through recently in Omaha, Nebraska with Bud Crawford. You got to understand, our minds, and I say these things on my videos. I don't know if you guys catch it. Maybe you guys don't. We've been preconditioned by media to think a certain way about law enforcement. And like in any profession in life, any profession, it's not just law enforcement. Nurses, teachers, doctors, construction workers, lawyers, engineers. Even when you go to the grocery store and you have a cashier, cart attendants, flight attendants, pilots, it doesn't matter what you are. You're going to have a small portion of a-holes in each department. Every job that I just named, everyone in theory doesn't act ideal. This is not a utopic civilization where everybody handles themselves in the highest moral regard. This is not some sort of heaven state. We have fallen people, broken people who happen to break other people because broke people break people, and misery loves company. Certain people just have a negative disposition from a psychological perspective, and these people, they're all around us. You have mentally ill people who function as if they are normal. You have functioning drug addicts who go to work every day who have a very, very peculiar way of reasoning, because once you start injecting chemicals inside your body and it starts to impact your brain, I mean, there you go. You're not yourself, whether you're being influenced by alcohol or whether you're being influenced by drugs, which are essentially just chemicals. With that being said, that's the world we live in. However, the CIA operation of what we know as mainstream media, which used to be called legacy media, these things, or these elements of our social construct, is part of a deliberate social engineering experiment waged by the CIA. It's a CIA operation, and we have been conditioned to believe that law enforcement is bad. It's not that easy. You have bad ones in law enforcement. You have very good ones in law enforcement. Unfortunately, the way our society is wired and the way humanity operates, based upon what mainstream media delivers, it gives us messages of negativity more than it gives us messages of hope. Negativity sells because it allows people to go out and buy product for security purposes. I mean, there are more people now riding around with car cameras than before. You have people who have dash cameras. They put it inside their vehicles just in case they get pulled over by police and they get harassed and the police tries to kill them. So when I was listening to Coach Malachi, from his personal experience, he felt that Bud Crawford was going to get shot at that moment. The police officers asked them to unbuckle their seatbelts. First of all, the police officers told them to put their hands up. They listened. They complied to the police directives. So, actually responding to the instruction of the police officers, they put their hands up. Then the police officers is saying, unbuckle your seatbelt. But that's also a trick. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. And Coach Malachi didn't have to mention it, because if I have my hands up and you tell me to unbuckle, the minute I do this to unbuckle myself, they can just shoot you and say, oh, I was afraid. I thought they were going to pull a gun because they had guns in the car. Bud Crawford does have a weapon. He did have a weapon in his car legally. He can possess it. His bodyguard did as well. There's nothing wrong with having a gun. But these police officers, they can do whatever they need to do to take you out if need be. Now, I say these officers, and I say that very reluctantly, because I hate to say these officers as if all officers are like that. I'm sure I've been pulled over several times in my life. I've never dealt with I'm here in Texas, Houston, Texas. I've never dealt with and the police officers that I've been pulled over by have all been white. I've never been pulled over by a black officer. I've never been pulled over by, let's use the word black. I've never been pulled over by a brown-skinned person, a brown-skinned officer, and I've never experienced that. Every time that I've been pulled over by a police officer, it's gone well. There was one officer that pulled me over. This is when in my college days. I think he pulled over the wrong person. He claimed that I was speeding. And this is to let you know how comfortable I was with the police officer, because I don't have a mindset that the police officer is trying to kill me. Now, it's broad daylight, of course, but we've seen stranger things happen. We've seen police brutality happen in the daytime too. So it's not limited just to darkness, or limited just to being police brutality happening at night. It can happen in the daytime as well. So obviously I have my hands down here. I didn't have my hands up here. I was intense. I wasn't anxious, but this was back then. This was in the early 2000s. And I know people say things were different back then, but I don't think things are different. I think that mainstream media sets the precedence and they set up the environment, the psychological environment. And the reason why I call it a psychological environment, because before we can approach our environment, we first have to think about our environment. The thought process comes first. The thought process is primary. So when you think first, then you adapt to your thinking. So for instance, I'll give you an example. If I'm afraid to drive on the freeway, if I've never driven a car before, right? Because right now I'm on the freeway, I'm on the road to work. If I've never driven a vehicle before, and somebody says, get in the car and drive, because of my apprehension, because of my anxiety, and because of my fear, I've already preconditioned my mind through the thought process first. Then the thought process initiates my emotional response. So you combine those two together, it's going to dictate the way I confront my environment, i.e. the freeway. Now that I'm scared, I'm going to drive scared. So the point that I'm making is that when you have these stories that are coming out on mainstream media about police brutality and police killing people, white cops killing melanated people, what happens is that you already have a preconditioned mindset of that scenario. So you start to play on that. So you have people teaching their children on what to do if you get pulled over by a cop, and especially the melanated families. They're teaching their young boys and young girls what to do because police are out to get you. But that's not really the case. Unfortunately, you have a couple of bad apples in a bunch, and it corrupts the whole bunch. You understand? So there's nothing wrong with teaching your child or your son or your daughter about how to respond to police officers. I think that is pretty simple. You just, yes sir, no sir. You comply. You don't give pushback. You don't give resistance. And that's it. So in my personal experience, I've never dealt with a rude officer that treated me any kind of way. So that's number one. So I'm not gonna put my frequency on those who've gone through that. It doesn't mean that I'm marginalizing other people's experiences with the law that have gone sideways or that have gone in a way that they didn't want it to go. So anybody out there that has dealt with some sort of police harassment or police brutality, by no means am I undermining your experience. What I'm saying is that I have to live my experience and operate from a perspective that's based upon what I've dealt with. Yes, it sounds a little bit selfish, but it has to be that way because I can't hinge my frequency upon the burdens of every man, because if I do that and I start operating with that sort of trauma, PTSD is not my PTSD. It's not my post-traumatic stress syndrome that I'm gonna put upon myself. Life is already stressful as it is, so I'm not trying to add to my plate. So when I'm hearing Coach Malachi talk, he's saying how he thought that Bud Crawford was gonna die, and I can empathize with him because if he's had experiences where he's been mistreated by police officers before. That's his story to tell. Has he been shot? Has he been beat? No. But because of the things that he's heard on the news, coupled with some of the experiences that he's had individually, and then what was happening in Omaha, he felt in his heart of hearts that those police officers were going to kill them. Initially he was afraid for Bud Crawford's life because the gun was pulled on Bud Crawford first. Then the bodyguard that was sitting on the passenger side of Bud Crawford, who sits at 6'5", 260 something plus pounds, he's a big guy. He had the gun pulled on him next. And then of course, Coach Malachi had a gun pulled on him. If you don't believe me, go to his channel. You can listen to the story. It's one of his latest videos that he did. It's like a 3.5 hours, like a 3-hour podcast. I didn't listen to the whole thing. When callers started to call in, I kind of tuned out. But I did listen to the first part of his podcast pertaining to what happened when guns were drawn on Bud Crawford and everybody else that was in the car. So the cuffs were put on them. They were handcuffed. Coach Malachi talked about the handcuffs being on too tight. The police officers, as I said, I go back to what I was saying, they did tell them to put their hands up. So if a police officer tells me to put my hand up, and if I reach like this, it looks like I'm reaching for a gun. So initially, when the police officers told them to get out the car, unbuckle their seatbelts, they all said no, which was very smart. It could have been their last day on planet Earth. It could have been. If you listen to my videos, I've always said, if you are a person of influence, if you are a person that's popular or famous, or if you're a celebrity, and what you're doing goes against the status quo, or you're going against the stigmatized messages that have been put out there for decades. And what I mean by stigmatized messages is that if you are a person of pale skin, or i.e. white, there are certain people that are truly racist to the core, and we can't do anything about that. But I'm not going to lump all people that have a particular skin color and say that they're all like that, because that's not true. Unfortunately, some of these people end up having positions like being a police officer, so they end up using their badge and their gun to exercise their hatred. So whenever they have an opportunity to exercise their hatred, they're going to take full advantage of it. What better day than to exercise your hatred against a man of color who is celebrating his success, Terrance Crawford, having a parade. Everyone in Omaha, Nebraska knows who he is, so it's not like the entire precinct, all the police stations, they knew that there was a parade going on. They knew who, even if you're not a boxing fan, you would know that this is about Bud Crawford, right? So they know this, and they picked that day to send a message that you're still not SHIT. But I don't want you guys to convolute the message of a couple of idiots and then use that as a determinant factor to say that every other person that looks like that man is that. See, we can't let ignorance perpetuate ignorance. People who hate off of race color alone are ignorant people, but then we cannot have an ignorant response to an ignorant message. They're trying to send a message, and I don't know if they were out to kill. I don't know the motives, but that thing about put your hands up, right? Because there was no reason. Number one, there was no reason for them to be pulled over. That's number one. The police report that was given out, according to Coach Malachi, was false. Coach Malachi could not go into the details, but he said that when you find out the reason we were pulled over, he couldn't say much. You're telling these people to get out of the car. On what grounds? That's called harassment. These men in the vehicle were very intelligent, and they handled themselves very well. I haven't seen the video. I saw small footage, but I didn't even want to keep watching it. I heard the frustration on Bud Crawford. He was like, I'm not reaching for my gun. He kept saying, I'm not reaching for my gun. I'm not reaching for a gun. I'm buckling my seat. He had to keep saying that. You have to make very slow, subtle movements with these guys. They have guns drawn. For what? If it's a routine traffic stop, why do you have guns drawn? Then you have idiots, and I totally agreed with Coach Malachi on this, who were leaving comments saying that Bud Crawford is not above the law. Well, neither are the cops. The cops aren't above the law either. I mean, just because you're a police officer doesn't give you the right to pull out your gun on people. Just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean that I get to curse my children out, curse my kids out, and belittle them and make them feel dumb. Just because I'm a nurse doesn't give me the power to give my patient wrong medicine and the wrong drugs. Just because I'm a doctor doesn't give me the right to dispense bad medicine or give wrong advice. And just because I'm a police officer, as I said earlier, it doesn't give me the right to pull my gun out on people without justification, without proper justification. I mean, what caused you to put out your weapon? Did you feel threatened at the time? No, they didn't feel threatened. They wanted to send a message that you don't run ish over here. So when people have hatred in their hearts, they normally get into professions that gives them power. Judges, police officers, teachers, principals, managers, coaches. So if you want to find your racist, they're usually in those professions. There are probably many more, but any managerial position, any position that gives you power, they love that, because these are people who were powerless when they were young. They harbored inner hatred, and most of the times these doctrines of hate are brought down through generational lines, meaning that they're taught that. They grow up with parents who speak negatively about brown-skinned people, caramel-colored people. They talk about how we're animals, we're this, we're that. So if you grow up being taught that, that's called indoctrination. And then maybe their experiences dealing with the melanated race doesn't go well, and they can't wait till they get a badge and a gun. So it's almost vengeance, motivated by inner hatred, conditioned by indoctrination, that fuels these people. So a message was sent to Bud Crawford that you don't run ish over here. Yeah, you may have the key to the city, but we own this, we run this. And from Coach Malachi's experience, I truly believe that they could have been shot at, because that put your hand up, oh, then unbuckle yourself. Think about it, if they were just really trying to follow instructions, they would have been killed. But when they said unbuckle yourself and get out of the car, which again, there was no reason to pull out the gun, and there was no reason to tell the guys to get out the car. Did you suspect them of having drugs? On what? I mean, that's harassment to the nth degree. And Bud Crawford will sue, and he's gonna win. And they all said, no, we're not gonna unbuckle ourselves. We're not gonna unbuckle ourselves. And so what they did, according to Coach Malachi, he said that when he had both of his hands up, he had both of his hands out the window, but he didn't turn this way to unbuckle himself. So as you guys are seeing me, you guys are basically seeing me flipped. This is my right hand. This is my left hand, right? So what he did, he had his left hand out the car and used his right hand slowly to unbuckle himself. Because if he turned, it'd make it seem like he's a left-hander trying to turn around with a gun and shoot them. And then the police officers can say, oh, I was afraid for my life because I saw they had guns in the car on the floorboard, and I was afraid that. So I'm like, come on. The floor is down here. I'm reaching down here. So cops can use many reasons to shoot you if they want, if they're that type of cop. There was a footage about a year ago, I believe. Remember the lady that called for the police officers because she heard a strange sound in her backyard, and it seemed like she was inundated with drugs. It seemed like, when I say drugs, I mean medication, not like illegal drugs. And it seemed like she was kind of out of it. And she said that she kept hearing noises, and then she was in the kitchen just cooking. Remember that? I think it's on Instagram somewhere. Check on it. But it's hard for me to see those things, because I knew what was going to happen. My wife told me about it. She sent me the footage. My coworker sent me the footage, and I'm the one that sent it to my wife. And it was heartbreaking because this lady didn't know that you're about to die. Police officer pulls out the gun and just shoots her. She's in the kitchen cooking. And he's like, put down the water, put down the water, put down the water. And she's like, what? And he shoots her, saying that she was gonna attack him with the boiling water. Like, it was crazy. Like, I don't even recommend that you go see that, because I have sort of an empathic soul. It's hard for me to see certain things. Now, some of you guys may say, oh, you're weak. It's not weakness. I have a very sensitive soul. It's hard for me to see violence. I can watch boxing. I could watch, even when I watch boxing, I have kind of wince sometimes when I see a guy get hit pretty hard. I can watch football. I can watch things like that. I'm not like a wimp in that regard. But when I'm watching raw film of somebody being killed, I can't watch it. It's very, very difficult to watch, because that impacts me. The eyes are the gateway to the soul. My soul's very sensitive. So I'll be honest with you, watching that video sort of in a way traumatized me to a small degree. So there are many occasions where police officers have killed people, and so when Coach Malachi said that he thought that Bud Crawford would have been shot, he said it on his channel. He was like, oh man, I'm like, man, he was like, is this the way it's gonna go down? He's about to be shot. Because when police, they draw their gun, what do you think? You're not running, you're sitting still, stationary in your car, and they pull out guns. The next logical inference is to infer that these guys are gonna shoot us. You only pull out a gun to shoot people, folks. You're not putting out a gun to just scare them. You don't need to scare people. You are the police officer. You pulled them over and they stopped. They weren't running. They were not trying to escape law enforcement. So what was the justification for drawing your weapons? I don't understand that. They didn't even think about a taser. They said, no, we're pulling out the gun. We are on a mission to take life. So Malachi was just very, very explicit in the way he described the police officers. He called them the C word, Cracker. He called them that. He said that not all white people are the not all white people are the Cracker. He explained where they get that term from in Florida, that the certain people that cracked the whip on the melanated slaves were called the Cracker, and police officers are another form of the Cracker. So he called them that name, and I see where he's coming from. The way the police officers conducted themselves was, to say the least, very unprofessional. And these guys are allegedly paid to protect and serve. That's not protecting and serving. You are harassing and bullying and putting people, you're acting like the criminals that you're supposed to try to detain. You are the criminals. They should all be detained. I think every police officer that was there, because not one of them spoke up against the actions of any. Like, no one checked, there was not one cop that checked the other and said, hey, chill out, stop. We don't need to do this. They were all complicit. So if they're all complicit, I think they all need their badges taken. I think it's only fair. I'm never for people to lose their jobs, but when you have police officers that operate that way and they've been caught because of the person they pulled over, can you imagine how many other times they've harassed other people that are not Bud Crawford? Do you think that's the first time that they've done that? Ask yourself, is this the first time that these police officers have conducted themselves in this manner? Hell to the no, this is not the first time they've done it. They're used to doing this. They just happen to do it to Bud Crawford, who's a well-known person. What about the unknown civilian? What about the unknown melanated person who's just a regular Joe? He doesn't have any representation. So it's just disheartening that these things happen. It's also disheartening that stories like this condition us. And I hate that it has to be publicized, because not enough attention is being put towards the great things that cops do. I think that if people had a fair attainment of both aspects of what police officers are doing, people will feel a little bit more at ease with law enforcement. I don't believe that every white cop is racist any more than I believe that every black cop is racist. I can't do that. I have to wait to see how you treat me first to make my declaration. I'm gonna give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm always gonna operate from a glass half full perspective. That's logical. I can't walk around thinking that every police officer on the road is a racist. Again, we have to understand what racism is, okay? There's a difference, and I have to explain this to people, because a lot of the times people just like to throw out the term racist. No. People oftentimes consider me racist, but I'm not. I'm prejudiced, meaning that I prefer my own people. I am biased towards my own people in a good way, right? I don't hate any other race. See, when you insert the element of hate, that's when it becomes racist, because the hate is a premeditative condition to help people express their anger, which comes in premeditative acts of violence. The hate has to be there first. The hate is the nucleus. It's the central component to every violent action or every harassing action, as you saw the police officers behave the way they did against Bud Crawford, Coach Malachi, Coach Bud Crawford's security, and the young lady that was behind Bud Crawford. And she's the one that was recording the incident. It has to start with hate. And then that hatred is what's going to dictate your actions. In a time when things actually hit the fan in real time, out of the heart, they say out of the heart the mouth speaks. But not only out of the heart does the mouth speak, out of the heart the body moves. The body's going to move as your emotions move, but your emotions have to be set first on a foundation of hate or love. And if you hate a particular race, it's going to show in tense situations. Because you instinctively go back to muscle memory. You go back to what you always harbor within your soul. And if you harbor hate within your soul, your actions are going to show that. It's going to mirror, it's going to match it. You can't fake it. You can fake it when you are in a good space. You can fake it on camera when you're just smiling. But when you have the opportunity to actually exercise that hate, as those police officers did with Bud Crawford, then you're going to show it. You think if Bud Crawford was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Caucasian guy in a vehicle with his family, do you think that guns would have been drawn on their family? No, they wouldn't have said that. It would have been a routine routine stop. Maybe would have given them a warning, maybe given them a ticket, and then they would have been on their way. There's no need to tell people to get out the vehicle. There's no need to pull guns on people. So, in our world, unfortunately, that's what drives. That's all propaganda. And that's not me saying that what happened to Bud Crawford is not real. No, it happened. And it happens every day. But I feel bad for the ones that do the right thing, that get overlooked by their police department. Most people who climb their way to the top are people who have somehow bucked the system. When I say bucked, I mean they've done certain nefarious things, and more often times than not, most people are getting elevated through the corridor of blackmail. When I say through the corridor of blackmail, what I mean is that some of these shady characters get positions of being police chiefs and sheriffs because they can be controlled. So you better do as we say, or else we're going to pull up an incident that happened with you 6-7 years ago, so you better comply. That's one instance. Or you have an instance where you have crooked police officers who have done so many evil things. They have a good record of arresting people and doing their job, but most of the time they are harassing and arresting people who are innocent. But because they're so busy putting people in jail and putting people in prison, they stack up their resume, so to speak. Their stats. Because I don't know how it works in the police department, but I'm sure you have to take tests and things like that to elevate through the ranks. But even before that, you also have to have a good record of showing that you're doing your job out there. So whatever part you're playing in a police department, because there are many facets to a police department, you have to do what you have to do to get your name known. It's no different than any other job you have. So it's just unfortunate because our media is not going to generate the good stories about police officers saving people. Usually on the news, you're seeing police officers come after the fact, after someone's been killed, after someone's been robbed, after someone's been raped, then the police arrives. So in the world we live in today, I wouldn't say, especially the way the climate is, I wouldn't say to call the police to protect you. The only person that can protect you is you. First, you are the first line of defense. Calling the police is a last resort. When I say last resort, I mean last resort. Because number one, most of the times it takes them forever to get to you. By the time they get to you, if you're waiting for them, you're good as dead. So you need to do everything you can to protect yourself at all times. So much so that you even need to protect yourself from law enforcement nowadays. Because oftentimes, they're the ones that come to harass, bully, and curb police brutality, and perhaps sometimes kill you if it gets to that point. So I'm glad that Bud Crawford is alive. He's going to sue. He should sue, and all those police officers should lose their jobs. And I'm not for people losing jobs. I understand people have bills to pay, but when you conduct yourself in that manner, a message has to be sent that we're not in Omaha. We're not going to tolerate this. And it has nothing to do about race. Even if Bud was a white man and they did this to a white man, they still need to be fired. But even more so, they need to be fired because they did it to a man of color. Because there's a message that's trying to be sent by the police officers. Because think about it, they could have arrested, they could have pulled over Bud Crawford any other day. But why the day of the parade? A message is trying to be sent. So therefore, law enforcement or the justice system needs to send their message by bringing the hammer down by firing all of them. All right, peace. Leave a message to me what you think.